I'm going to start, Derek, by just taking you to your last few days there. You had a fantastic career at the factory. What was it like at the very end and you were retiring? How did you feel after letting all that go? You've been there for so long.
Well, it was a bit of a wrench, I suppose, after all that, and the customers and the workforce, which you got to know very well over a period of time. But equally, I thought that when I was 65, it was time to go and let the new faces come in and do their thing. But there we are. But I think missing people from around the world, I think that's the biggest thing I missed.
And how long had you been at the factory?
Since 1947. But there was a 2-year break when I went into, I called up for national service.
So how old were you in 1947 when you joined?
15.
You were 15?
Yeah.
So fresh from school?
Yeah.
What did you do?
What did I do?
15.
Good question. Basically I was tea-boy, telephone, post-boy, you name it. I was a general runaround, really.
Just all over the factory?
Yeah, anybody did anything, yes.
And in those days, it would have been George Goodall running the factory?
Yes, he was managing director.
And HFS was still alive?
Yes.
And did you get to see him ever?
Yes, he used to come down about once a month from Maidenhead, I think he lived, and in his blue Bentley.
So, and what was the atmosphere like when HFS appeared as to when he wasn't there, basically?
Well, when Mr. Morgan, when HFS came, the factory was spick and span, and everybody was on their best behaviour.
Mm-hmm. And was that the workforce did that, or was it somebody cracking a whip and saying, "Hey, the boss is coming"?
Mr. Goodall.
Mr. Goodall.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So, from your earliest days, you obviously progressed. What did you move on to doing next, or from?
Can we just we go recording?
Yeah. But just let it go.
But when HFS used to come down, he used to wander around the factory with his measuring instrument tool, which was actually with his hanky. And he'd go and measure up something, and he'd go along to whatever he wanted, and he got his hanky out like this. And then when he go through something narrow, he'd go like this, and then he'd come back. I don't know what he did, because he went to his office. And then he'd have his OXO and a sandwich for lunch. But apart from that, I had no dealings with him. Well, I was a junior, so naturally I didn't.
I like the thought of him having an OXO.
Yeah, he always had an OXO drink, always.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. But you, I mean, as you say, with all due respect, the sort of the office junior is what you might call it today, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah. You wouldn't really have any direct dealings.
None at all.
Other than being smart on the day he turned.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, well, I didn't.
How did you get the job there? Was it just sort of job application? Did you know George Goodall or family?
No, I went to the Labour Exchange and I had my little green card and went down there, and that's what they'd got available. It was simple as that. I didn't know what I wanted to do, I just went to find out what they'd got to offer, and that's where I landed up. Not by, not a choice. It was just they'd had a vacancy.
Excellent. So and your career moved on from there. What was the next step?
Well, I basically used to do, it seems strange, but I used to do a lot of spares invoices, charging up one finger typewriter, and used to do all the pricing up of the spares and sending out the invoices and things like that. But really, I suppose you got to know all the parts of the car by doing that. Because if you were pricing something up and you didn't know what it was or couldn't find it, you went down the factory and talked to the chappies who made it or whatever it was, and so we went from there.
And would you have to decide on prices of spares in that way, or?
No, we'd go to the secretary then. They'd price it.
They price it.
Yeah.
So was there any time when you thought, oh, I wouldn't half mind going into the coach building shop or the tinsmith?
No, I never wanted to do that. No.
No.
Then I mean, eventually, obviously, one did different things in the office. So one did have a mixture of jobs within the office. Then somebody left in the sales department, and Mr. Grohl said, would I like to go in there? And I was like the junior there again. And then I went on, and then I came sales manager, and then subsequently sales director.
Yeah, I'm buzzing. I'm going to see if I can turn my phone is silent, but it was definitely buzzing now. I'm going
Was
to.
it you or was it next door?
It was me.
Definitely Richard.
It was me. I'm sorry to say.
Because we've got those builders, and you know it's
No, but it was.
Funny
it was
noises
me.
they make, but they're not bad.
Okay, so what was the opening? I'll have to go back a little bit on that just in case that interfered. What was the opening that came along that you took advantage and moved into?
When one of the sales personnel left, I can't remember who it was now, but one of them left, and because Mr. Goodall even then did some of it, so I more or less really, I suppose, assisted him and his secretary really. Because as I say, there's only about 5 cars a week being made, so it was relatively easier to do than what it is today with all the volume which is being produced.
Mm-hmm. So you moved into the sales office.
Yeah.
Do you think you found your feet there and you thought, this
Yes, I
is...
thoroughly enjoyed it. Yes, you know, meeting customers and agents. And I say you got to learn. They become friends, some of them, over the years.
Mm-hmm. And then within the sales department, obviously, I mean, as you probably rightly point out, it's quite a small company, so it's a small sales department.
Yeah.
But, at which point do you think you became boss of the sales department, if that's the right word?
Well, I suppose when I was made sales manager, I suppose.
Sales manager.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I say, subsequently, the meeting of the other members of the board, I was appointed to the board.
Can you remember what year that was? When you...
Oh, I can't, I'm afraid, no.
I think it was the 70s. I don't know if I'm wrong, but
It was probably around about that time, but I just can't remember. It's a long time. I've been retired 13 years.
Yeah. But that's a great achievement for anybody, and we always admire people who start on the bottom rung of the ladder, all due respect, and work their way up to a senior position. So to become a director of the company and be on the board, so to speak, you must have been very proud of that.
Oh yes, it was an achievement, yes.
It was an achievement. Working with Peter at that time, were there any major big decisions that you know, or was it just day-to-day running, would you say?
Oh, I mean, obviously with production there were a lot of hiccups, particularly with suppliers, and all sorts of things went on. You know, if it wasn't chassis, it was engines. If it wasn't engines, it was electric components, and so it went on. Even bumpers. Now, I've known the time when we couldn't send a car out because we hadn't got the connecting plastic pipe from the wiper down to the motor, or the motor to the wiper.
So just ongoing trials and tribulations
all
of
ordered,
running.
but people didn't keep the schedules and things like this.
Yeah. Of all the time you worked there, I think from speaking to Peter in the past, it's fair to say that the relatively early 60s was a low point for the company. Were you in sales by then? So what was it like? What was going on?
Well, there was just no demand, and then, of course, predominantly was America was a big market. I think about 6 out of 8 cars or something like went to the States a week, which we had. Well, they didn't go all together. I mean, they went in batches, of course. Yeah. But yes, it was pretty bad. But one thing, I mean, which is always, and even today, I mean, they've not laid anybody off, which is some achievement. Must have been worrying for Mr. Morgan on occasions.
But Peter always told the story of how he went to the American agent who wanted to send some cars back and said, I can't sell these, nobody wants them. And Peter went over to America and did a tour and managed to persuade dealers to keep them and sell them. Were you party to that?
No, I didn't know.
You weren't?
No.
No, it's funny how I suppose it is and it isn't. The responsibility that Peter took upon himself. How did you? This is almost a silly question, but working alongside Peter, how did you find that? Did you enjoy working alongside
Yes,
him?
he's great. I had no problem there. I mean,
No.
he gave you the job to do, and that was up to you to do it. Oh, yes.
He was a lovely man, wasn't he?
I got on well with him, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, sometimes there was a sort of disagreement, but in the main, nothing major.
Mm. Yeah, no, nothing but admiration for it. Okay, well, I think that the next sort of significant happening for the company, other than my fantastic film in 1988.
Oh, yes, that was good.
Well, actually, before that, there was the Wheelbase film in 1968.
Yeah.
I'm always grateful to you because you pulled out a can of film from bottom drawer of your filing cabinet in the
yes.
factory and let me look at it, which is great. But yes, John Harvey Jones came around the factory and said, "You're doing this all wrong," and we all know that we didn't particularly agree with him, basically, because there's a Morgan way of doing things.
Yes,
To say the
true.
least. What was it like at the time, though? What was rippling around the dealers and the factory about this man coming in? And,
It's rather difficult to put into words, but well, basically, I mean, he knew everything, he knew you nothing, and he was just picking your brains. This is the thing, but what he did there and what he did to other companies, well, it just didn't materialise. Capella and Triang Toys, things like that, they just didn't proceed and done any good. But Morgan's did stay basically the same. They have changed subsequently, but not to the degree that he suggested. But and everything was done, and the interviews were recorded naturally. But then it was all edited, as things are. I mean, my interview on that program was about 30 minutes, and though I say it was quite good. I had about 2 minutes on live television, which wasn't very good. It was all slanted his way.
yeah.
I mean, he was great and I was an idiot, basically.
Well, that's not true. It is interesting that he has been proved significantly wrong, I think. I think it is very interesting that there's... I was quite surprised to see that Ginetta still exists and they're still British owned.
Yeah.
So whereas I used to say there's only one British car company, there are actually two British car companies,
Yes.
Morgan and Ginetta. So Morgan have done very well. They've hit 100 years. Did you get to see much of the centenary celebrations?
Yes, we saw quite a bit of it. We had an invite, which we're most grateful to Charles for. And yes, it was very good. We thoroughly enjoyed it. All the events what took place basically at Cheltenham. We didn't go to the other events because we'd been to most of them anyway before. But we certainly went to Cheltenham every day, and that was most enjoyable.
Yeah, I think it was great and some achievement. And so finally, without a doubt, we all wish the company a fantastic future, and we want them to be there in 100 years'
Certainly
time.
certainly do.
How do you think they'll go forward? Do you got an opinion on that? A polite one? I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
I'm just, if you have,
I'm a traditionalist, that's all I really can say to that.
You'd like to see them, if you like, when you say traditionalist, you think they should stick to the production of what they do best,
Yes. Yeah.
rather than branch out into the
I
new
certainly
field.
have to say that the improvements and the technical improvements and mechanical improvements what have taken place, I mean, it's first class, really, it really is. And that should stand it in good stead for the future.
I'm sure it will. Well, Derek, look, thank you very much for your time. I'm not
Pleasure.
sure. Is there anything you would like to add, or anything you can think of that would be just quite interesting to hear about? Any fun little stories? Like I say, I'm not here to dish the dirt. Far from
No,
it.
no,
Far from it.
I suppose a good one really was I had a customer and he was waiting for his car, and I told him how long he had to wait. And in no polite terms, he said it's worse than a gestation period of an elephant. Yeah.
Well, it did get very high, didn't it? Did get very,
Very apt.
yeah, very long. Indeed. Oh,
But there are. I mean, obviously things you just can't remember over the passing of time. And I never wrote anything down. That was when I was at work. My memory was very good.
Mm-hmm.
My memory
Yeah.
was very good when I was at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
All
I'm afraid
you
it's
must retire and relax
It's-
and
it's,
sit back and enjoy.
an age, of course, of coming
Yeah.
into it.
Well, it's hitted me already, I
Yeah.
think, without a shadow of a doubt. Thank you very much, Derek.
Pleasure.
It's been an honour,
All right.
a real
Thank you.
pleasure, treat for me.
Good.